And welcome to the booth here at the Magic World Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and we're bringing you coverage here of the booster draft. We are heading into round number 2, and let's take a look at our matchup here. We've got Owen Turtenwald versus Reid Duke. That's right, the close friends, testing partners. They were shacked up in a house with William Huey Jensen for almost a month ahead of time, testing 10 hours a day. Driving each other nuts, I'm sure, along the way, and now they're going to find themselves here, both at 5-3, by the way, a solid, respectable record, not a lot to give, and somebody's going to walk away with a loss here.
Yeah, luckily for them, they, like you said, lost to give, so they know that's not an elimination match, but you still don't really want to play against your teammates at this stage in the tournament.
That's right. Now, how much are they going to know? We have deck lists, they have deck lists, and of course they know each other. How much is that going to play into what we see here?
It adds a little bit of a layer because, you know, we're at the World Championship. We're seeing bluffs. We're seeing a lot of like leveling where someone, you know, represents a card. The opponent respects that and plays around it. And these players have played with each other so much that they're going to understand that when Owen attacks and leaves up one of his, say, 3 River Herald's boons, Reid's going to know what that means. And Reid is going to play as if Owen maybe has it or make the judgment call that Owen doesn't, but it's going to be on his mind. These players are going to play with deliberation, and they have a lot of knowledge.
It looks like we're underway here, and let's get started. Owen Turtenwald is going to kick things off with Commence Speaker. A nice little 1-drop here. It's just a 1-1 at the moment, but almost for sure will be a 2-2 by the time it attacks. No 1 or 2 drop here from Reid Duke. A little bit of a slower start. But Reid's on the play, so he has that going for him. And there you go. There's that island. Commence Speaker's going to get there, going to get in. Owen, you know, we were oh, wow, and this is the all-in play here from Owen Turtenwald. He's going to go for River Herald's boon right now and say, you take 4.
I love it. This is one of the hallmarks of this format is that, you know, creature-enhancing auras or spells like this are just a kind of safe bet compared to what they normally would be. And Owen knows that Reid does not have Legion's Judgment in his deck, so by just going for this now, he plays around Vanquish the Weak, and he just puts Reid under a huge clock.
Yeah, Skymarch Bloodletter's a fine playable in the format, but it looks woefully slow here. And bang, take another hit. So it's already gotten in for 8 damage, though we'll see that Duke's actually at 13 because of that Skymarch Bloodletter. Sailor of Means is the follow-up play here for Turtenwald. We will note that he did not play a land this turn. No, I'm sorry, he did.
And part of the reason that Owen ran out that River Herald's boon was to make sure he could curve out. He knew he had a 3-drop already, so he's like, well, I'm not doing anything with mana on turn 2. Reid is also not going to walk into a River Herald's boon, so might as well just use it.
All right, you want to see something funny? That was overflowing insight there for Turtenwald hitting the graveyard. Somehow the same deck that has turn 1 Commence Speaker, turn 2 River Herald's boon hit you for 4 also has a 7-drop draw 7. Oh, here we go though. Right on turn 4, he's going to play this banner. And Vanquisher's Banner, of course, he's going to be naming Merfolk with that. It's going to be pumping up the team. And that's going to get him in for 5 damage this turn, and then any Merfolk spells that he casts from now on, well, he's going to draw an extra card, and it can really fuel him into the late game.
Yeah, and the opt remaining in Owen's hand is going to let him dig for Merfolk. Owen's deck is awesome. It not only does it have the Vanquisher's Banner and the Overflowing Insight, we've already seen him discard, he has Tishana, Voice of Thunder, so he's got a lot of card draw.
Yeah. A second copy is going to make Owen discard his island here, but he has kept Opt around, so he's got that going for him.
I think he drew a Deep-Root Warrior, so he's going to be in good shape here. A lot of his cards replace themselves, and this is a 3/3 threat that becomes a 4/4 when it's blocked. Vanquisher's Banner really working overtime here, and Owen just somehow has both the initiative and the long game plan, and he's got all his bases covered.
He also opted main phase and decided to put the card in his hand. The Deadeye Tormentors, even ×2, don't have enough power to actually take down this 1-drop here from Turtenwald.
Yeah, remember, that's a 5/5 Commence Speaker, so Reid is forced to chump block with his Deadeye Tormentors, which, despite getting an extra card each time, Owen's still just, you know, racing ahead on cards.
It is chump block o'clock here for Reid Duke. Oh, but he can play this game as well. He's going to play Mark of the Vampire on his Skymarch Bloodletter. I'll let you sort out the flavor implications of that, but in the meantime, he gets in for 4 damage in the air with lifelink.
Well, that is a good strike back, because even though Owen has a 3/2 flying Shaper Apprentice and a 3/3 Deep Root Warrior and a 5/5 Comena Speaker, Mark of the Vampire does make up a lot of ground, because gaining 4 a turn means that Reid can now start chump blocking and feel like he's getting ahead as opposed to just chump blocking and losing.
Well, Owen's having none of it. He's just going to attack with everything.
And this is a forced block. This is 12 points of damage. So that Deadeye Tormentor had to block the Comena Speaker. This is the turn Owen really would have loved to have a follow-up play. But, yeah, he's still doing fairly well for himself. He just has to hope Reid doesn't have too many cards to add to the board here.
Now, in the meantime, Reid is going to keep on attacking in the air. 4/4 lifelink. It's going to knock Owen down to 7 and put Reid at 9. And wow, Reid actually has 2 plays this turn. Skittering Heartstopper plus Territorial Hammer Skull. Is Reid actually seizing the advantage back, or does Owen still win?
Owen just drew 1 with the win. That's going to be lethal here. It's going to be able to throw that on the Comena Speaker, and between that and the Shaper's Apprentice, that's just going to be enough damage. So
yeah, that's just lethal in the air. Exactly what Reid Duke did not want to see from Turtenwald, a way for him to get his biggest threat evasive.
So
and that's 10 points of damage there.
And Reid just confirms the powers of those creatures and says, yep, good game, you got it. And that is game 1 going to Owen Turtenwald in quick fashion. He's got a bit of a brew here. He first picked Overflowing Insight, but it looks like he's also got the aggressiveness side of the Merfolk deck on his side. We'll see if he can finish off Reid, or if Reid's going to fight back. We'll be back right after these messages.
Looking for a place to hang out and play Magic? Head to your local game store this and every Friday to play Friday Night Magic events. Get more info at magic.wizards.com/FNM.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Boston, Massachusetts. We're here for the Magic World Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. We're happy to have you along as we work our way through the draft portion here on day number 2. Big headlining story, William Huey Jensen, 8-0. Has not lost. He is in our feature match area playing against who is currently second in the standings at Seth Manfield. But our main T-ball is Owen Turtenwald versus testing partner and close friend Reid Duke. And Owen impressively taking game number 1, smashing for 4 on turn 2. And never really sees the initiative from there.
Yeah,
or yielded the initiative, I should say.
Owen looked like he might have gotten in a little bit of trouble when Reid slammed Mark of the Vampire on his Sky March Bloodletter, but top deck won with the wind, sealed the deal for Owen, though realistically Owen had a lot of pretty live draws. So I think Owen was in okay shape. The fact that all of his merfolk drew him a card with Vanquisher's Banner in play means that he had a lot of things he could have drawn that would get him out of that situation. It was kind of a last-ditch effort for Reid. Whenever you put Mark of the Vampire on a creature, you know you're just crossing your fingers. You know that if it's dealt with or your opponent can find a way around it, then you likely have lost. But it was a card that could get Reid back in a game where he was very far behind.
Yeah, he did end up gaining a bunch of life off of it, but not enough.
Actually had dinner with the Peach Garden Oath yesterday. Owen, Reid, and Huey, and it was kind of interesting watching them discuss sideboarding for Constructed. That's actually what they did for most of the meal, was lay out their deck and look at the other lists, because all the competitors have deck lists for the World Championship, and discuss the various ways they may or may not want to sideboard with their team or energy deck against the decks they expected to play against today.
And we talk about these players eat, sleep, and breathing Magic. I guess they're taking it to the next level there.
Yeah, I mean, they were not letting their foot off the gas pedal. They, after the first day of competition where they ended with a pair of 4-3 records and a 7-0 record, it wasn't let's have dinner and unwind. It was let's have dinner and discuss our deck lists so we know how to optimally sideboard for tomorrow. And this is kind of why that they are the best. This is why that they have gotten rewarded with so much success over the last couple of years.
You do get a different sense for the vibe of that team versus other testing teams.
Funnily enough, I got a chance to spend some time with Sam Black, Josh Hutterley, and Jerry Thompson, one of the other testing teams in this tournament, also doing quite well for themselves. Their search for Azcanta control deck doing very well. That dinner did not involve any talk of sideboarding. It was almost the opposite. It was, let's discuss everything but Magic, because they wanted to unwind, and they knew what they were going to do, and they didn't really feel the need to worry about it too much.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the different approaches. All right, looks like players are taking a look at their opening hands here for game number 2, and we are underway. Reid kicks things off with the Swamp, passes a turn back to Owen, who's got an island, but no Kumena Speaker this time. So Reid can say, okay, I might get my feet under me this game before I get ran over. And he's even got a nice little aggressive 2-drop with Raptor Companion.
Speak of the devil. The Speaker showed up on turn 2 here.
Now he's got a Deep-Root Warrior to use his mana more efficiently. So, and interestingly, Owen's going to go ahead and take a little bit more of a controlling route this time. He's going to just snap it off. And a reasonable follow-up, though not really what Reid would want here with a Queen Space Soldier, just a 2-2.
And Raptor Companion does force a trade even for a somewhat better creature. Deep-Root Warrior has a bit of an ability, but Owen, I think, feels confident that he'll be able to race in the air with cards like Shaper Apprentice and Kumena Speaker, that he's fine making that trade. Pretty mana efficient turn 3. Kumena Speaker, even if it didn't come out on turn 1, still being able to cast it on turn 3 alongside a 2-drop is very strong for Owen. He's getting a mana advantage here.
Wow, Owen's actually going to block with the Shaper Apprentice here.
That is interesting.
Maybe Reid has multiple copies of Skullduggery or something that Owen feels like his creature won't survive that long.
Reid has one. And
stuff.
One of the reasons to do that too is a Skullduggery there would still just be a 1-for-1 instead of a 2-for-1. If you blocked with the Kumena Speaker, it's too much.
That's right. So just too much value to give away, even if the Shaper Apprentice does look a little better on the board. Though this is a nice follow-up. Shapers of Nature here for Owen Turtenwald. And that's going to be one of the more powerful cards in his deck at Uncommon. You can see its activated abilities there. If he gets to untap with it, it gets out of hand pretty quickly, and he's not going to get a chance to untap with it here.
Reid has nothing but contempt for that card.
Yeah, Frasca and Reid, as it turns out.
Though it's actually kind of the opposite. He actually respects the card, which is why he's using a premium removal spell.
True,
So.
true. Maybe a little jealousy in there too. You never know. There's a Prosperous Pirates for Owen Turtenwald, which looks kind of interesting. We did see that Owen has in his deck significant number of card draw spells.
Yeah, Owen has, of note, 2 7-drops, Tishana, Voice of Thunder, and Overwhelming Insight. So,
Yeah, Overflowing Insight and Tishana both at 7 and both drawing a lot of cards.
so Prosperous Pirates kind of fits nicely despite it not being a Merfolk and being kind of expensive for an aggressive Merfolk deck.
Yeah, Owen's deck is kind of going 2 different directions with that. He has a powerful late game, but also, as we saw, an explosive early game. Sometimes it can be hard to mesh those 2 together. Another interesting play here that we see from Owen, he's got Grazing Whiptail. He actually has 3 of those in his pool.
Yeah, and he sided them in. He had none in his main deck.
Which is a card that has been very good.
Well, if you think you're going to be the aggressor most of the time with cards like One Up the Wind and River Herald's
Yeah,
Boon,
of course.
you don't really need the defensive measures. And cards like Prosperous Pirates and Sailor Beans, which Owen is using to ramp to 7, take up a lot of your non-Merfolk slots. You just don't have that much room to play non-Merfolk in a deck with something like Vanquisher's Banner.
But, you know, he did see some flyers from Reid in the first game and decided, yeah, I could use a Grazing Whiptail, I'll bring it in.
And Reid here with a Mark the Vampire, but nowhere really great to put it on. He can put it on something like a Territorial or Hammerskull to be able to attack and tap something, but that still opens the door for Owen to double block, and Reid wants to see, maybe he feels like he's so behind and he'll just hope that Owen continues to play around Skullduggery.
Yeah, I think he's going to not take the risk here, which also shows Owen that Reid does not have Skullduggery in his hand most likely.
Owen with a backup Whiptail in hand, I believe, and he actually drew 1 with the Wind, so he's going to potentially just throw that on something like Kumena Speaker and just start chipping in for 4 a turn while locking up the ground with Whiptails and Prosperous Pirates. Owen would love to draw Overflowing Insight here. That would be an amazing draw, though. Tishana probably slightly better, but...
Slightly better, he says. I think Tishana would be pretty good. I mean, he'd draw, what, 4 cards and have a huge creature, 4/4 on the battlefield.
Pirates are a Leaf on the Wind here, getting in for 5 a turn in the air.
Yeah, a pair of Grazing Whiptails really doing a nasty job of locking up the board on the ground and making life difficult for Reid Duke. Finds himself down a game against Owen Turtenwald and a little behind here too.
Reid also, lacking cards like Contract Killing. Like, Owen knows that Reid just doesn't have unconditional removal, so putting 1 at the Wind on one of his creatures is a fairly safe bet.
Raider's Wake there for Reid Duke does not look great.
Oh, wow, that's one of the worst cards he could have drawn because Owen's just going to be empty-handed, and Reid doesn't even have good attacks to begin with.
Yeah, that was a really poor spot there for Raider's Wake. That's the kind of card that has a very high upside. If you can line it up at exactly the right time, it can really damage your opponent's late game plan. But when it comes to this stage of the game, not so much. All right, well, we've got an update from our floor reporter, Tim Willoughby.
A whole bunch of games, of course, going on the back tables. Jerry Thompson picking up an easy game 1 against Yuya Watanabe, who didn't draw the lands that he needed, though it must be said that Yuya found it on game 2. Then going on to game 3. We've got Sam Black and Brad Nelson. They've just finished their game 1. It finished with 10 creatures on Sam's side, 11 on Brad's side, but he was the one with Wind Strider and Mark of the Vampire to close that one out. And, well, there's one undefeated player in the room. William Jensen picked up game 1 against Seth Manfield. He had Fiery Cannonade and Lightning Strike early to control the board. That enough to push through with his Pirates in game 1. Back to you guys.
Wow, we missed some action here, didn't we, Luis? The second Mark of the Vampire, making that the nastiest dinosaur in all the land, and even clearing up an attack here for Reid.
Yeah, Territorial Hammerskull now at 6/7 lifelink. And being able to tap down one of Owen's creatures means it's really hard to throw together enough power and toughness to take it down. Owen does have the option of now leaving his Prosperous Pirates back, and after it becomes tapped down by the Mark, maybe triple blocking, or Reid could even force the Prosperous Pirates into a block by tapping one of the Whiptails. Either way, that second Mark does bring Reid back into it. It's going to buy him at least 12 life, it looks like, and really throw a wrench into Owen's plans here. So if Owen's attacking with Prosperous Pirates, he likely drew another creature to add to the board.
Oh, he just passed.
That's because it's a snapping sailback.
Ooh.
So Reid really needs to draw something this turn.
He did.
Imperial Aerosaur.
Yes, Imperial Aerosaur off the top will give that Hammer Skull flying if he wants it to. Now, he may be tempted to give one of his other creatures flying that could get in for an attack as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because
Got a 3/3.
Reid has to wonder what Owen has in hand, and the Raider's Wake actually complicates things. If Owen drew a land, he has incentive to play it because of Raider's Wake. So I think Reid is going to play around a combat trick.
He does. He, in fact, gives his Hammer Skull flying and +1/+1. What is it, 7/8 now?
It's a 7/8 lifelinker.
Wow.
Owen
That Hammer Skull has lived a very dangerous life.
Yeah, it's just going to hammer Owen down to 4, Reid up to 18. So Owen able to add to his board, but still that Mark of the Vampire has led to it, such a life swing that's going to be much more difficult for Owen to actually close out this game.
Yeah, and he can't find anything else too. He just found a forest, and he is still in a reasonable board state though, right? Like,
if nothing else changes, if Reid doesn't have a trick, Owen can still attack with Prosperous Pirates because the Hammer Skull can tap down one of the Whiptails, but the Aerosaur still gets blocked by the other, and the Hammer Skull gets blocked by a combination of Snapping Sailback plus Kumena Speaker, or triple blocked if the Sailback gets tapped down by Grazing Whiptails. Owen is going to play it conservatively, though. He is not attacking with Prosperous Pirates.
yeah, you can see why it doesn't take much to have that plan go awry and leave him chump blocking with a snapping sailback. That's not where he wants to find himself. Also, keep in mind that Owen Turtenwald has a very strong late game. It has to be stronger than Reid's with that overflowing insight and the Tishana that he has floating around in his library somewhere as well.
Owen has a draw 7 and a draw 6.
Yeah.
Just floating in his deck.
Yeah, you can see why he'd want to be conservative with his attacks here. Interesting to throw it back to Reid Duke here, who has to decide if he wants to make those attacks, because he would end up losing his Hammer Skull, right?
Currently, if the Hammer Skull enters combat, it will die unless Reid has a trick in hand, and Owen is going to be forced to go for it. Owen is no longer in a mode where he can really play around a whole lot.
Yeah, this is a big turn here. I want to see if Reid... No, Reid's going to pass it back. We've got another update from Tim down on the floor.
Very big matchup going on the floor. We have, of course, William Hugh Jensen against Seth Manfield. And, well, Seth, he put down creatures and used River Herald's Boom to pump his team. It looked like the big Fiery Cannonades from Huey's deck wouldn't be good enough. But Fiery Cannonade plus Dual Shot, that was enough to clear the board, leaving only a Headstrong Brute for Jensen. That enough to let him clear up game 2, still undefeated.
Wow, Jensen still undefeated. Is he, what is that, 9-0 now?
So
17-0?
Jensen is, I think, locked for top 4 because in order for him to even have a chance of missing, he'd have to lose his next 5 and miss on tie breaks. That seems highly unlikely. It's not, I suppose, a mathematical lock, but I think it's very close to it.
Okay, so great stuff. Thank you, Tim, for that update. And it looks like Turtenwald, once again, sketchy stuff. He draws his card and passes the turn back. That leads you to think that he's got an instant, and in fact he does. It's River Herald's Boon in hand for Turtenwald.
Yeah, that Raider's Wake actually doing a little bit of work. It wasn't a good card to draw. Reid, wishes he had not drawn it, but it does force Owen to play out his hand, and whenever Owen has an instant and doesn't play something, Reid does get a little bit of information. Also, just having overflowing insight in his deck makes Owen want to play out all his lands so that when he draws 7, he can deploy as many as possible.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Right now he has 10 lands plus 2 treasure, and he wants to see one of these 7 drops, and he can't find it. It's another island.
Well, that second Hammer Skull could make things complicated. There's a chance that Reid's going to be able to force through an attack here because Owen has 5 blockers. Reid has currently 5 attackers, but Reid can reduce Owen down to 3 blockers, which means 2 of Reid's cards get through, which if Reid goes for it, that should be enough here. And the fact that Reid's playing something else pre-combat is not good news for Owen.
Yeah, Owen is at a precarious 4 life here.
Another Mark of the Vampire.
What in the world? He's got another Mark of the Vampire, and looks like Reid's confident with this attack because he's attacking everybody. And that, of course, is 2 blockers sent packing, and that's going to do it. Reid Duke, wow, marks everything up, and boom.
Wondering where his overflowing insight was, and it was pretty close.
Was it pretty close?
His next card was a forest, but I think it was in the next couple cards after that.
Wow, that was an exciting game. 3 copies of Mark of the Vampire from Reid Duke. I would assume that he's looked at Owen Turtenwald's list. Scroll down blue. Let's see what he's got. Depth of Desire, though, he actually didn't start it.
Owen almost unquestionably has it in his deck right now.
Yeah, that's right. But only one, it looks like. That's the only thing that we can see here. So let's take a live look in and move our way down the tables a little bit here. Take a look at Jerry Thompson versus Yuya Watanabe.
Headstrong Brutes continuing to do work. It looks like he's red-blue Pirates and getting some attacks in here.
That's right. These players are both sitting in the middle of the pack at 4 and 4. Not a lot of wiggle room as far as losses go, but still hope of a top 4 for these 2. And this is game number 3.
It looks like Jerry can't get away from searching for Escanta there.
Funny. Playing it in all formats here at the World Championship. Has been quite impressive in Standard, a little less so here in Limited, but Jerry's finding something to do with it in red-blue. Haven't seen a lot of Yuya on camera yet this weekend, but
yeah, somewhat uncharacteristically quiet performance from him so far. You, of course, one of the players to watch in any tournament he enters. We're going to see him on Sunday. One of the players on Musashi.
That's right. It's going to be exciting. We get to watch the team series wrap up. But for now, players are focusing on individual play.
And Yuya has a lot of options here. He has 8 mana thanks to those 2 treasures in play. So he's going to be able to deploy multiple cards, but he is behind on board. Jerry's forces are a little bit bigger and a little bit better. So Yuya's going to have to figure out how he wants to navigate this here. And Headstrong Brute really does make blocking difficult. And even though Yuya looks like he has 4 creatures in play, one of those is a Sleek Schooner, which does need to be crewed. So Yuya effectively only has 3 blockers. At the very worst, Jerry can attack with his Stormfleet Aerialist in the air if he doesn't want to tangle with Yuya's ground forces. Is that another Tempest Caller?
Yeah, it is.
So that's going to give Jerry a huge opening here. And unfortunately for Yuya, there's no way to get around it even with a vehicle. Because if you crew the vehicle in response to your creatures being tapped, the vehicle then just gets tapped as well.
That's right. And tap they go. Jerry says, I'd like to go to combat because there's blood in the water here. And Jerry's ready to strike.
And despite Yuya having what looks like Vraska's Contempt in hand, it's still going to take a ton of
That's a
damage.
lethal attack, yeah. It is plenty more than 11, so not enough there for Yuya Watanabe, and that is Jerry Thompson winning the match. And we get the Efro cam. Hi, Eric. Moving in on Reid Duke versus Owen Turtenwald. Game number 3 here upcoming. They're both sitting at 5 and 3. This is a critical match, as all of them are today, to their chances, but staying with just 3 losses actually gives you a little bit of wiggle room, and with one more round of booster draft after this, it puts you in sight of the record you'll need in Standard. So these players really would love to pick up this win, though, as you can tell by their demeanor, it's all business. This is another playtest session and another match at another tournament for them. But boy, this is an important one.
I like to imagine that when they play test, they're also all business.
They are. I've seen them. We did hear Owen tell a story yesterday that they apparently started calling each other pirate names at some point. It really got ugly in the testing house, Weird things happen psychologically when you're stuck in a house for that long. I think Owen was Beckett Brass and Huey was Lannery Storm.
I believe so.
I don't know where that leaves Reid, but some secrets are best kept that way.
I just assume Reid's Batman, so.
So
Christian Bale's Batman.
So you picture it that Owen goes, "I'm Beckett Brass," and then Huey says, "I'm Lannery Storm," and Reid's like, "I'm Batman," and they just keep testing, and that's it. I can see it. It is well within their range to have that. All right, so Owen going down to 6 here.
I'm just going to be disappointed if we don't see an Overflowing Insight cast.
I
I will
am too.
accept Tishana Voice of Thunder as a consolation prize, but Overflowing Insight is really what I want to see.
I do too. Owen ruthlessly discarded it game number 1. And he put his card on the bottom. He's on the play, so this one could play out in any number of ways. And there's an opt to help smooth things out. That is where you want to see opt after you've mulliganed. Help make sure you hit your land drops or find the type of action that you're looking for.
Ooh, there's Tishana, Voice of Thunder. So if Owen can get to 7, we've got some action. Though Reid having a pair of Deadeye Tormentors really does punish Owen here.
Yeah. Oh, here's a duress now. And he's going to take that one Depth of Desire that we knew he would bring in against Reid here. But that is actually the only card he has, I believe, that interacts here. I'm taking another look. One with the wind. He's got the 1 Depths. He's got a cancel, but I don't think he's bringing that in.
Yeah, but
I'm just not seeing much here that interact with Mark of the Vampire.
while that's true, the fact that Owen has 2-drop into 3-drop and Reid's first play could be a turn 3 Deadeye Tormentor without Raid means Owen's actually doing pretty well for himself. Like Reid's options here are to just pass and not play anything, or just play a 2/2 that has no good blocks. And it's also really hard to get flooded when you have Shapers of Nature because you can just activate it if you've got nothing else to do.
And he might just do that right here, and he does. Wow, he hits for 6. Reid's down to 12, and Reid has drawn nothing but planes this
Reid
game.
has 5 planes in his hand.
Yeah.
So Reid is going to be able to play his Fathom Fleet Cutthroat and double block, but if Owen attacks with his Deep-Root Warrior, then he's going to be able to force the double block and then use Shapers of Nature to trade for both of Reid's creatures.
And still get in for 3?
And, well, he's probably not going to attack with Shapers of Nature
course not.
on that scenario.
Because then the double block shifts over there.
But Owen also has a Jungle Delver in hand. It's got his built-in Shapers of Nature right there.
There you go. So attack. If Reid blocks, it's going to get +1/+1, putting it to 4/4. Owen can then spend 4 mana to make it a 5/5, and that's enough to kill both creatures.
I think Reid's priced into it.
Wow, Reid has to be miserable. This is Owen's 2-mana creature. It's just a common 2-mana creature here. It's trading off for 7 mana.
And
How was Reid come back
secretly,
from that?
Owen had a Delver in hand with a Forest. He was waiting to play it. And Reid drew Vraska's Contempt, but he's drawn 7 planes and 1 swamp.
What is going on here? By the way, you can sense it from Owen as well. He went from, oh no, mulligan on the play, to, whoa, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, he's significantly ahead of Reid Duke. Reid has an uncastable Vraska's Contempt and triple planes in hand.
What's also brutal for Reid, he's got 3 copies of Mark of the Vampire in his deck. Those are just complete dead draws right now.
And Owen's just going to stay aggressive. He's just going to jam for 5. Nothing Reid can do about it. And this is actually setting up lethal next turn. If Reid draws a planes here or no creature, it could just be over.
Well, we're not going to see Tishana cast, but not for the reasons we initially thought. The game is just going to end before it gets to that point.
That's right.
Oh, River Herald's Boon, just another pretty devastating draw.
Yeah, this gives Owen insurance against any potential tricks that Reid might have.
And Reid is likely not going to take the block here because he just can't afford to, and then River Herald's Boon will be lethal.
And that's game. Owen Turtenwald improves to 6-3, defeating Reid Duke, who had a very unfortunate draw there. It was planes, planes, planes off the top from what looked like a reasonable start with some pretty good stuff, but no, it was not good enough. And even though Owen Turtenwald had to take a mulligan there in game 3 on the play, it didn't matter. He still was able to win in short order. So good stuff from the feature match area there. Looks like we do have one more match still outstanding as we see Jensen poke his head in and say, how'd it go, gentlemen? And you will, of course, hear the news that Owen has won the match. And In the meantime, take a look at Sam Black as he lines up. Whoa, a heck of a board state against Brad Nelson. What does Sam have going on here?
He's got a lot of dinosaurs, and he's actually building up towards being able to activate Encampment Keeper for 8 mana, giving his whole squad +2/+2, which not something you see very often, but it looks like Sam is actually in pretty good shape here. Though Brad is at 32. Brad with the splashed Mark of the Vampire on a snapping sailback here. Mark of the Vampire really making its mark on this format.
It certainly is. And of course, Brad's aware of Encampment Keeper here, just making sure exactly how it works.
Let's see what dinosaur Sam can get here.
Yeah, does he have some big bomb in his list that he can go grab? No, but it's pretty good. A Bellowing Aegisaur.
Bellowing Aegisaur does threaten to distribute a lot of +1/+1 counters, though, if Sam can get it involved in combat.
Yeah, it might be difficult here, right? An attack will just lead Brad to say, sure, take 3, no problem. And Brad can really craft his game plan around that Bellowing Aegisaur.
Well, it depends on whether Sam can fight. He's got a Pounce in hand, so this is
Okay, that's business.
lead to a pretty devastating turn where Sam can use Pounce, make it so his Aegisaur does kill one of Brad's creatures, and then gets a +1/+1 counter on every other creature he's got in play.
Looks like he's going to be patient with it, though, because he also drew Territorial Hammerskull, and that Kinjali's Collar really has helped him deploy everything here.
Yeah, and the life total advantage really doesn't mean as much when Sam has such an impressive board and the capability of growing it in a way that's very difficult for Brad to deal with. The sailback right now is 7/7, so it's keeping everything back, but the combination of Encampment Keeper, giving Sam's team +2/+2, and Bellowing Aegisaur threatening a +1/+1 means that soon enough Sam's going to be able to attack with, at the very least, Colossal Dreadmaw, potentially more.
This is a really cool board state lining up here.
You don't see very many like this in this format.
No. That is funny. Chat points out, look what's under Ixalan's binding. It's a foil chase.
Apparently that's a flavor win of some kind.
Yeah, they said that too.
It doesn't make up for the Mark of the Vampire not turning the creature marked into an actual vampire, but I suppose it'll mitigate the damage a little bit.
This is apparently game 2 as well, as we see Brad has taken game 1, but Sam has got a bit of work to do for game number 2, and then if he wins it, he's going to have to do game number 3 as well. So this is, players have got some work to do for sure.
Yeah, Water Trap Weaver giving Brad an opportunity here.
Not a big one, though. It looks like he just wants to chip in for 3 in the air.
Well,
There is another Whiptail back there, right?
well, Air Elemental does beat it straight up in a
Oh,
fight
sorry,
there.
Air Elemental. Yeah, sorry, I
And
missaw that.
Brad does have a Crash the Ramparts in hand, but I think what Sam wants to do is wait. Is that a Vanquisher's Banner to get
Yes.
all of his dinosaurs?
Yes,
Plus
absolutely.
1/+1.
Oh, boy. Even though Brad's at a comfortable 32, that could absolutely plummet with Vanquisher's Banner plus the Encampment Keeper.
I see this playing out very poorly for Brad, where he attacks Air Elemental into a 4/5 Grazing Whiptail because he's got a trick in hand, and he goes for that, and then Sam uses Pounce. His Bellowing Aegisaur kills the Air Elemental and puts a +1/+1 counter on everything in response.
Oh,
Because
God.
the Aegisaur is a 4/6 thanks to
Oh,
the
God. I can't. If that's what happens, I can't watch. Like, you'll have to hold me, shield me from it.
Well, it looks like it might not, only because Sam is just going to take the initiative and go on the offense first, potentially. He's lining up Territorial Hammerskull to tap down the Snap and Sailback. He's like, what happens if I attack with all 3 of these creatures? The problem is Brad is at such a high life total that this may not work out well for Sam. Well, we'll see.
He's going for it.
So remember, all the dinosaurs are +1/+1. This is a 7/7 trample, a 3/4, and a 4/6. Sam is hoping Brad makes blocks that get blown out completely by Pounce. And Pounce, remember, does a lot of different things here. First of all, it disrupts double blocks. Second, because of that Bellowing Aegisaur, it also represents a +1/+1 counter on anything. So there are very few blocks Brad can make that actually end up working out. But because Sam is going to be the first to pull the trigger here, because he's going to be the one casting Pounce first, Crash the Ramparts could end up really disrupting what Sam is trying to do.
Yeah, and you can see that Brad's trying to figure out if he goes extreme mode here, puts 4 creatures on the Hammer Skull and says, okay, whatever tricks you might have, I can still get your Hammer Skull dead. He does have 32 life to play with. So yeah, he's going to go for the quad block here.
And that will kill the Hammer Skull. There's
The
no
3/4.
there's no combination of pouncing that will stop that.
So Sam's going to put the cards in order, the blockers in order here.
I actually don't think this is going to work out that well for Sam, because if he tries to pounce Bellowing Aegisaur onto anything except the Water Trap Weavers, then Brad's Crash the Ramparts is not gonna work out well. And yeah, Sam goes for the highest reward play, which is, you know, putting it on the Air Elemental. Air Elemental's now going to become a 7/7. It's going to kill Bellowing Aegisaur, and
Oh, that is a savage blow out there. Now, the Aegisaur is still going to fight it and still get the trigger.
it is, and
So it's going to leave behind a legacy here, but it's dead.
it's going to make it so the Hammer Skull takes out the 2 Water Trap Weavers. The upside for Sam is that Air Elemental now still does lose to those, you know, now 5/6 Grazing Whiptails. And I don't think that Brad's going to have a consistent source of damage. He does get to hit with the Snapping Sailback this turn, though.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad for Sam, as he just has a monstrous board going here.
Sam still, I think, does have an advantage thanks to the Vanquisher's Banner. And as the game goes on, his creatures are bigger and they replace themselves with extra card drop. But that, at least, combat step worked out fairly well for Brad as opposed to what it could have been.
We'll have the players fix that 1 die on the tapped.
That Whiptail's been grazing a little too much, it looks like.
Yeah, he just has a 1/1.
Gluttonous Whiptail.
Just has a 1/1 counter on it. There we go.
The net result of that trade was Pounce, Territorial Hammer Skull, Bellowing Aegisaur for 2 Water Trap Weavers and a Crash Rampart. So 3 for 3, but Sam's cards were much better and more threatening. So that's the best Brad could do.
That's the best Brad could do, and you know, Sam still has to be happy that he did get that Bellowing Aegisaur into some sort of combat scenario. As it turns out, it was a fight, but I mean, look at the +1/+1 counters. He netted himself 5 of them off of that, and his land go from Brad Nelson. He does not attack with the sailback there.
Wow, Sam just drew a 4/5 that draws him a card here.
Okay, this is where things can get really out of control. And that was a commune with dinosaurs, so he's sure to find more action here. We're right off the top, a Hammer Skull.
And he
Oh,
puts
boy.
4 lands on the bottom.
He's going to be happy about that. Nobody wants to draw all of those.
We're getting to the point where Sam really just has to worry about being decked. Because
Yes.
I really don't see how Brad wins through a 4/5 Whiptail and 2 5/6 Whiptails. That's just too much defense. So Sam just has to not end up in a position where he runs out of cards.
I'm going to take a look at Brad Nelson's deck list here. You know, because there are a few cards in the format that can get even a board that big. Tempest Caller comes to mind as one.
River's Rebuke being another one.
River's Rebuke as well, exactly. Those are the 2 cards that can get him out of it, but this time I'm going to scope out the deck list here and see if he's got those. There's Brad Nelson right at the back. Blue, River's Rebuke.
And neither Rebuke nor Tempest Caller are a
Right.
feature of Brad's list.
That is going to make it incredibly difficult to actually punch
Colossal
through. And here's
Dreadmaw.
another Dreadmaw.
So at some point here, Sam may go for the attack, tapping down the snapping sailback, and then Brad has a dive down in hand to give it hexproof. So Brad does get a nice block with his giant lifelinker, but Sam just still has enough creatures and the encampment keeper to give his team +2/+2 that I don't think that works out all that well for Brad anyway.
Well, it looks like Sam's had enough, and he is not fussing around anymore. He is going to go for the full swing out here, leaving back just the encampment keeper plus the mana to activate it. But as you can see, dive down from Brad Nelson is going to protect his snapping sailback from that trigger and allow him to put what's going to be a pretty nice block on something. Can he survive? I'm assuming so.
Brad can definitely survive here. He is able to,
I mean, even through the encampment keeper, right?
even through encampment keeper. the question is, will he have enough to have lethal on the crackback? Because that sailback is an 8-11 right now, a 7-10 right now. So a 7-10 means it can block even one of the one of the big Dreadmaws. It can't block the biggest Dreadmaw. It can't block the one with the plus +1 counter because a Encampment Keeper will stop it. But he's able to take a lot of damage and then potentially attack back for lethal. So what Sam likely needs to do is not sack the Encampment Keeper unless he's got a follow-up in hand.
He doesn't. He has, I believe, a Deep-Root Warrior in his hand.
Well, that is a chump blocker.
Okay.
So that's all Sam really needs. He needs something to
Okay.
block Snapping Sailback on the way back, and that way he doesn't die to Brad's attacks.
Sam does have enough mana to activate an Encampment Keeper and still keep up for that 2-drop.
But the way Brad is lining up his blocks, it looks like he might lose Air Elemental to the other Colossal Dreadmaw, which will stop Brad from having lethal on the way back, even if with the Sailback, unless Brad keeps Drover the Mighty and Sailor Beans and now an 8-power Sailback if the Sailback kills the Dreadmaw. Because if the Sailback doesn't die to Dreadmaw, because it will have been damaged. So,
by the way, do you see what Brad's done with these dice?
he's trying to see how much damage they do. Because like he put a 6 in front of a 4/5 Whiptail that it gets Encampment Keepered.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on with the Vanquisher's Banner sort of passively pumping up all the dinosaurs, and then also the potential for Encampment Keeper to add an additional 2 power.
And remember, Brad
A lot
is
to track.
effectively at 32 because he's getting 7 off of the Snapping Sailbar.
He'd love to keep that Drover the Mighty, the Air Elemental, as well as his Sailback. That's kind of his goal here.
Part of the problem for Brad here is he has to respect the ability of Encampment Keeper, but if he blocks well enough that Sam doesn't have to use it, Sam just won't use it. And then it'll still be a threat for next turn, or potentially even a chump blocker.
Right. This is an incredibly complex board that Brad is working his way through. You can see he's counting up exactly what he would take.
So currently Brad's taking 22 plus 10. He's taking 32. So Brad actually needs to block one more thing. Because he's taking 4 plus 5 plus 6, 15, plus 7 off of the unblocked larger Whiptail, 22, plus 10 off of that Colossal Dreadmaw over there that's lurking near an Air Elemental, but it looks like currently not blocked by an Air Elemental. Oh, no, he's taking 31 because the Kinjali's Collar will actually only deal 3. It's not a dinosaur.
6, 7, 8.
So this currently leaves Brad at 1 life with lethal on the backswing. If Sam uses the Encampment Keeper, but Sam's not forced to use Encampment Keeper. The only thing Encampment Keeper does now is it deals an extra 10 damage to Brad and saves a Colossal Dreadmaw, which is not nothing. But it is not required that Sam use it, and Sam might want to play it safe and not die to Brad having a Bounce Spell or a Water Trap Weaver.
Brad deciding where to put this last blocker, a Drover of the Mighty.
Well, Brad wants to not block with Drover or Air Elemental here.
Right.
He wants to, if possible, keep everything else alive. But it looks like he might be forced to.
Oh, he's decided that must happen. Now it's Sam Black's turn to do math.
Well,
He has to decide if he wants to use that Encampment Keeper activated ability.
so currently Brad will have lethal, though. The Sailback's a 4/4. Mark makes it a 6/6. The counter makes it a 7/7. The second counter is going to get after this combat, makes it an 8/8. The Air Elemental is a 4/4. That deals 12. That's Sam's left. So basically, Sam has to decide whether he wants to deal 8 damage by sacking Encampment Keeper, plus keeping the Colossal Dreadmaw alive that's blocked by Sailback. The downside of sacking Encampment Keeper here is that Sam really just wants to not die to Sailback because he will be able to attack for enough next turn. So I like not sacking the Encampment Keeper, playing the Deep-Root Warrior, and just having 2 blockers back just so you don't die to 1 random bounce spell.
Looks like he agrees with you and passes the turn back to Brad.
And the problem Brad's facing here is, He has no way to stop the Territorial Hammerskull from tapping down his creature on the next attack, and Sam will thunder over for enough points of damage with those dinosaurs led by that Vanquisher's Banner.
Right, and you see Brad Nelson scoop up his cards pretty quickly after finding out the information that he needed, and that is because we've still got a game 3 to bring you here from this match, and they're up against it a bit as far as clock goes as well.
And
that was
like
a very long game that we watched.
one of very few matches on the floor here. It looks like Paulo Vitor Damarosa is still battling over there against Martin Mueller, but everyone else seems like they've packed up and are ready for the next round.
Are they all standing on the rails staring at this match impatiently?
Looks like Josh Utterlayton did rally. He defeated Kelvin Chu to, go back to 6-3 here.
Take a look at Brad Nelson. One more round of booster draft to bring you today before we head into standard. Looks like we've got a little strategic advice here from Brad Nelson. Let's see what he had to say.
In a battle between pirates, merfolk, dinosaurs, and vampires on Ixalan, we win because it's actually a really cool set. If I was an Ixalan dinosaur, I would probably be the biggest and slowest of them all. So not many people know this because I carry myself with so much confidence, but I really deal with imposter syndrome. At any moment at these tournaments, I feel like everyone's gonna be like, holy, he is so bad.
That was more life advice than anything, wasn't it, Luis?
Yeah, that was some of the best strategic advice I've heard Brett give, actually.
Jeez. I wonder why he feels that way.
I actually used to be teammates with Brad Nelson. He was one of the original members of Team Channel Fireball, including the year he won Player of the Year.
Back in 2010. What was his role on the team at that point, in your mind?
Well, it was kind of interesting. There were fewer standard Pro Tours those days, but Brad certainly knew how to test, and he did contribute a lot more to Constructed than to Limited, which is something I can say about myself and Josh Utterlayton as well. We had a lot more Constructed masterminds on the team than Limited. Ben Stark, one of the few, and Martin Yuzo, the kind of holding down the fort in that regard.
Looks like Brad was on 6 cards here. He scried to the bottom, but he of course gets to be on the play after losing the second game. There is a 1-drop though from Sam Black. Kinjali's Collar is going to help power out some dinosaurs potentially for him as Brad plays Opt on end step to try to find his lands, which he has done. Ixali's Diviner is his play. He sees his splashed Mark of the Vampire. He does get a counter, of course, as part of that process, but he's going to put it in the graveyard. Nowhere near casting it, it seems, and doesn't want it. Here's Commune with Dinosaurs for Sam Black.
No dinosaurs to be found.
No, but he does find a forest. And no play, though, from Black otherwise. Sailor of Means, so shields up 2 1/4s here for Brad Nelson, which don't actually play that well going forward against what Sam Black puts out, though they do play well against a Grazing Whiptail.
Yeah, this is not looking great for Brad, though, because Brad doesn't have a really big finisher. He doesn't have the Tempest Color or River's Rebuke we were talking about, and Sam will eventually win the late game with his Vanquisher's Banner, with his Encampment Keeper, with his multiple Colossal Dreadmaws. So if Sam can set up an army of Grazing Whiptails, eventually he is going to just lock down the board and win the game.
That's right. He plays a Pterodon Knight here, which can start applying pressure to Brad.
Yeah, Brad really needs to draw Air Elemental to be happy about what's going on here, because Brad's Water Trap Weavers and Crash the Ramparts are good. Those are good at punching through damage. But if you've got nothing to begin with, if you started with Ixali's Diviner and Sailor of Means, Sam's just going to be at 20, and yeah, maybe you get a couple advantageous attacks, but things go off the rails pretty quickly.
Tishana's Wayfinder for Nelson finds himself, I believe, a Water Trap Weaver, which he kept on top. But another very productive turn there from Sam Black, actually playing 2 dinosaurs thanks to Kinjali's Collar. Steadfast Armasaur and Territorial Hammerskull hit the battlefield. He passes the turn back and Brad's just going to stem the bleeding with that Water Trap Weaver. Pass the turn back with a tapped Pterodon Knight for Sam Black, who draws his card and surveys the scene.
And Territorial Hammerskull can tap down the Tishana's Wayfinder. Still does get taken down by Sailor of Means plus Water Trap Weaver plus Ixali's Diviner if Brad wants to commit to a bunch of blockers. But Steadfast Armasaur does a pretty good job of attacking in general. Sam may want to wait because he does have this Bellowing Aegisaur, which threatens. Once he has that on the board, Brad's just going to be so worried about Pounce that it's really going to mess with how Brad wants to block.
He's going to pass the turn after playing the Aegisaur, and Brad's going to draw his card for their turn. Oh, look at this!
Whoa.
Tishana, Voice of Thunder for Nelson. How does that change things?
Oh, that changed them significantly. Drawing 5 cards and putting like a 6/6 or a 7/7 on the board. That's gonna be a big swing. That's gonna be the kind of play Brad needs to make in order to get back into this game.
It's gonna catch a Pious Interdiction here from Sam Black. But Sam is out of gas at this point. His only other card is another Kinjali's Collar, which isn't really doing much at this stage. So we've got kind of a bit of a stalemate again. The question here is, did Brad Nelson find enough action off of that massive influx of cards that he can turn this thing in his favor? Because I agree with you, Luis. The longer this game goes, it seems like it gets worse and worse for Brad.
And Sam is putting some pressure on here. He's deciding that if Brad wants to make some blocks that end up taking down one of his creatures, Sam is okay with that, and Brad's not going for it. He's not choosing to make double blocks. Brad really wants to wait till he has Crash the Ramparts up, till he has mana up for a combat trick. So
also look at Sam's mana. He's just left up a nice little forest and nice little plains. He's got that Bellowing Aegisaur up there, and Brad's got to be thinking about cards like Pounce here.
Brad's considering if he wants to get a little more aggressive.
He does have a lot of tools to work with in hand. Let's take a look at what he's got off of that Tishana. Another Wayfinder, another Water Trap Weaver, Windstridle, even his own big dinosaur with Colossal Dreadmaw there, and then that pump spell that we mentioned, Crest the Ramparts.
You see, it's tempting for Brad to double block the Territorial Hammerskull, but if he waits a turn, he does have a lot more flexibility with Crash the Ramparts and just more creatures in play, so he might just play it safe and run some blocks here that still interact pretty badly against Pounce, so maybe he just is worth going for it.
This is going to be really interesting. Yeah, he's going for it, and it's actually going to pan out for him here, too, as he's going to take down the Hammerskull, and Brad's going to breathe a sigh of relief that says, whew, that could have gone a lot worse. Yeah, and Sam, in fact, just with the Kinjali's Collar number 2, and Nelson, now you can see how quickly he's starting to play as the clock does wind down on this match, but things looking better and better for Nelson, who mulliganed to 6 but played Pirate's Prize, used the cards to hit his land drops, and eventually work his way up to Tishana, Voice of Thunder. And is that going to power him through the late game here? As Sam Black, he's out of gas. He's on 0 cards at this point.
And unfortunately for Sam, there's no way to combine Bellowing Aegisaur and the Steadfast Armasaur where you can like shoot the Aegisaur. It looks like those 2 cards might have some little synergy, but
yeah, send a tail flapping over that direction. Yeah, not going to happen. So it looks like Brad's played a Water Trap Weaver. It's a little off camera, but you can see he's targeting. Ooh, but wait, there's more. The Dreadmaw as well?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Oh, but there's Vanquisher's Banner right off the top for Black. Now, that's not going to change anything on board this turn, but that's going to make future dinosaur draws look very nice.
And I don't think that, even though Brad got an infusion of 6 cards, I don't think that he has a significant advantage here, because he's, once again, has just kind of got a stalled board, and the Vanquisher's Banner, that'll represent more than 6 cards over the course of the game. Sam has tons of dinosaurs, and all his creatures are now, you know, at a +1/+1 bonus. Well, almost all of them.
And boom, right off the top, Grazing Whiptail for just 2 mana. He also finds the Encampment Keeper, so this is exactly the nightmare here for Brad Nelson. This is what he didn't want to see 2 turns ago. Plays a Windstrider on end step, but...
Note that Sam did not attack with Pterodon Knight this turn. So I think he may have sussed out the Windfinder. And wow, Jace, 9 castaway. So
What does that do to the board?
not a whole lot, actually. Because Jace can tick up, Brad can't get damage through, so the +1 is just ticking up loyalty until Jace starts making copies of himself. Actually, if you saw, Paul Tian posted a photo on Twitter, the tokens we have for Jace, just other copies of Jace, like actual Jaces.
Oh.
That have token stamped on them.
Oh, boy. We are fancy. He has kept Jace on top, though. Was that Commune?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Commune with Dinosaurs for Sam. And there's that Territorial Hammer Skull at the minimum.
Oh, not great news for Sam here. He just sees 4 dinosaurs in a land.
Oh, they're going to go to the bottom.
Well, you know, this might be the kind of game that you cycle through your deck, though honestly, this game's looking like it might end up leading towards a draw. Oh, Sam's going to get to reshuffle here.
Oh, interesting. Priest of the Awakening Sun there for Sam Black.
And that's going to let him search for a dinosaur, conveniently enough shuffling those 3 dinosaurs he knows are on the bottom of his deck.
And of course he gets the dinosaur of his choice. Yeah, this is not going well. Brad, you know, this is one of those matchups, another Encampment Keeper, where it feels like the players could just turn their decks over and just sort of say, okay, let's just say we get to turn 10. What happens? And it looks like Sam just has all the great late game stuff, even though Brad has resolved Tishana this game.
Sam will eventually win this game, but I don't know if he has enough time. It's hard to pick up a draw at the World Championship. The players heavily incentivized to win a match because you get pro points for a win.
Yeah.
But
They also get 60 minutes.
yeah, they get enough time, and you know, it just happens they had 3 long games here. Sam is going off here. He's got double Kinjali's Collar, Vanquisher's Banner. All his dinosaurs are 2 cheaper and replace themselves, but
Yeah, he also drew a Colossal Dreadmaw off of the Colossal Dreadmaw that he searched up with the Priest. So things going very well for Sam.
and Sam has 2 Encampment Keepers in play, but if this is turn 0, then Brad's turn will be turn 1. Sam will get 2 attack steps. He won't get more than that.
And Brad would have the last attack step if there were one.
Yes, but I don't see
Yeah, Brad just
Brad winning this game.
I agree.
I think this game ends in 2 different ways. Either the players draw or Sam wins.
We are in turn number 1. Of extra turns, the players will play 5 turns. And if there is no winner determined by the end of the 5th turn, this will be a draw. And Brad is just putting the shields up here. Another Sailor of Means. He needs as much toughness as he can get. And he's just adding more and more. Another illusion. He knows the storm is coming. There's 2 Encampment Keepers. There could be 1 activation on each of 2 turns.
And Sam at 22.
Huh, he actually needed that land to do it, didn't he?
He did. Sam at 22 does have to respect that Brad could attack back for lethal if Sam gets too ambitious here.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. It looks like he's just going to go for Colossal Dreadmaw.
Sam could also be attacking with a Bellowing Aegisaur here, because if Brad does block it with anything, then it will get enraged and give a +1 counter to Sam's team. So
Yeah, I love that attack.
there's a decent chance he actually wanted to do that the last couple turns.
It could be the case for sure. He had a significantly built out board. And this really does matter because of the huge tramplers that Sam Black has as well. A pair of Colossal Dreadmaw, those are going to be getting +2/+2 and requiring a lot of creatures to block them. They're also getting pumped from the Vanquisher's Banner as we speak as well.
Should be at 5, actually.
Yeah, that was a 4 damage attack there.
And Sam gets 1 more attack.
He's at 9, I'm at 22.
What? Sorry, he's at 6.
Oh, sorry, 6, 22.
Okay, he should be at 5 because that was an attack from 4.
Oh,
with
you're
the
right, you're right,
longest
you're right,
string.
you're right. Thank you.
That was Sam talking to us. We were right, at least. We should be proud of ourselves. Great job.
He really killed it.
All right. So this would be turn number 4 here, which means that Sam needs to make it happen here. The only thing he has to worry about is dying on the crackback if he can't actually get Brad dead. And this is just For those of you who like puzzles, yeah, I like that.
This thing triggers and taps your
You're a big guy,
Which is going to get hexproof.
right? And add an additional 3 toughness, which could matter.
So Brad can let the 2 Kinjali's Callers through because at +2/+2 each, they still don't deal lethal. So let's take a look here.
Yeah, the Kinjali's Callers.
So those are 2 9/9 tramplers. So I'm assuming. So if I were Brad and I was trying to figure this out, here's where I would start. I
Okay.
would say like, okay, you can let the 2 Kinjali's Callers through. You don't have to block them.
Uh-huh.
That puts you to 1.
And those are the only 2 creatures he can take
Correct.
anyway, so those are just off the table. Okay.
Correct. Then you have to block each Dreadmaw with 9 points of toughness, and then you have to put 1 creature on each of the other creatures. Let's see if Brad can do that.
Okay, yeah, that seems like a really logical way to work through this. So Brad is now lining up in 2 different groups. You see
And
the
that-
2 Dreadmaws, the Tramplers, and then the rest that can be single blocked.
Right, the Pterodon Knight is flying, so that you guaranteed have to block with the Windstrider. Oh, and yeah, the Steadfast Altar doesn't actually change anything.
No, the Armor Sword doesn't change anything unless he puts that on some... No, it won't matter at all.
So Windstrider has to go on the Pterodon Knight, and then you have to block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other creatures, and your looks like Brad can possibly survive here. I'd have to look at exactly what the power and toughness are, but I think that it actually works out because
No, I'm not going to put you on the spot to say exactly how this all pans out because, come on, that's ridiculous. But
no,
there isn't a chance that he can actually crack back, right?
I don't think so.
He's going to lose.
So,
the
so
majority.
Brad has to put Colossal Dreadmaw and a 3 toughness creature on one of the Dreadmaws. He also has to put the Snapping Sailback. Well, actually, this actually is a little awkward
Well,
because
one of the Dreadmaws actually just soaks up the other Dreadmaw, right? Because it got hit by the dive down.
yes, that one Dreadmaw is straight up 9. So
Yeah.
Dreadmaw blocks Dreadmaw. And then you have to. But the awkward part is you'd have to put 3 creatures on the other Dreadmaw. Except you do have Crash the Ramparts, so you get a little bit of flexibility there.
Oh, okay, an extra.
So the Snapping Sailback plus the Drover plus Crash does the trick there. That does 10. This has to be blocked by Windstrider. Yes, Brad is correct. Sam should have targeted the Windstrider with the Territorial Hammer Skull. That way the dive down would have not soaked up 3 points of trample because it would have been forced to be pointed at the flyer. And then, so those 2 do that, those 3 block that. Yeah, I think Brad does survive here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, block. Brad actually like barely survives, but he does survive here, and then so I think this game is going to be a draw.
But his board will be completely decimated. He'll have nothing to attack for anywhere near 22 on the
Correct.
5th turn. Well, have you seen our first draw here of the World Championship? Not a happy outcome for either player.
Yeah, and Sam a turn short here.
Yeah, this was really close.
I wonder if the outcome would have been different had Sam been attacking with Bellowing Aegisaur the previous couple turns, because
Me too.
that attack looked appealing to me.
I don't know if you noticed, but Brad also just wrote down the numbers this time. He said this is way easier than the dice.
And Brad, of course, part of the reason he's taking a little more time here is that he actually is caring about which creatures block which creature. I was just seeing if Brad could just straight up survive to begin with, without much of a thought of like what the optimal creature-to-creature combats are. Though honestly, it doesn't matter that much. I think all of Brad's creatures just die anyway. But
I think Brad feels confident that he can survive this attack, and that means that if he gives himself any chance to win, he's going to take it. Block there. And that Whiptail needs to find a friend here.
and especially given that like the Steadfast Altar has Vigilance, like there's really no way for Brad to attack back for lethal here.
Right, there's going to be a blocker either way.
And there's the encampment keeper that Sam may not even have to use. But still looks like a Grazen Whiptail getting through.
Yeah, I don't know how that could get through at the moment.
There we go. Brad trying to just optimize a little bit here, but he does survive. But he has
He's
one
got
creature
an additional
extra.
creature, yeah.
Yep.
Boy, he did need all of it though, didn't he? He used his Jace twice to make 2 illusions. He needed the toughness from his dive down. He just doesn't want to hit the submit button here because if he's made some small mental error, it could cost him the match. But I think he's got it all lined up correctly here as far as survival goes. Though, as you mentioned before, Luis, it doesn't look like he's going to have much of a board state. Certainly not enough to get 22 damage through.
So all of your creatures die except this.
The good news is that Sam has been able to just passively sit back and observe all of this and kind of run through the scenario. And the way he sees it is all of your creatures die except for this one
Wow.
sailor.
What Sam is doing here is setting up a convincing argument to Brad that, like, look, I'm going to win this game if given another turn, a draw is bad for us. All right, but it is going to be a draw.
Yep, it looks like it. So we're going to get a draw here between Brad Nelson and Sam Black. Not a super uncommon scenario there where where one of the players might have said, well, I might just concede to you. That happens occasionally when the incentives are lined up for both players. And like you said, there's a little bit of a wrinkle here at the World Championship. The players are actually playing for pro points after a certain threshold, and those count for the whole rest of the season. Very, very valuable. That is, of course, going to do it for round 2 here from the World Championship. We're going to have one more round booster draft for you coming up after these messages.